All right, we are going to talk about Einstein time, and basically the truth of the matter is that you are where time comes from. You are the source of time. I'm going to put that in your summary guide in the list, the short list of statements to meditate on and to contemplate, because that's a lot to wrap our heads around, but I love the way he unpacks this a bit in The Big Leap. Gay Hendrick's, this is kind of the final core chapter. He says, living in Einstein time, creating time for the full expression of your genius. And this is kind of like living in your zone of genius part 2. Your relationship with space and time can and should change, and he kind of unpacks why and how to embrace the truth of that so that you can really be empowered to live in your zone of genius. So he starts with the truth that you are the source of time. And he talks about if you're using time in any time management system, put it away. And try this instead. He says, Einstein time is a new kind of time management that reorganizes your conception of time at the very core. It doesn't take any time to use it. It generates time while also producing abundant rewards in creativity, feelings of ease, and financial well-being. So he says this delivers 4 main benefits. You're going to get more done in less time. You'll enjoy plenty of time and abundant energy for your most important creative activities. You discover your unique abilities and how to express them, and you feel good inside. Okay, so all the same themes he's been talking about throughout the book. So he starts with saying the problem and the solution. The problem is that our relationship with time is terrible, basically. And Newtonian time is based on this duality of time is either it's outside of us, that's a scarcity mindset, we don't have enough. Let me see. Okay. The Newtonian paradigm of time is also its major limitation. It says there's only a finite amount of time. Einstein time gives you a way to expand the amount of time you have because you'll learn that you're the source of it. With Newtonian time, it assumes a scarcity. Just like if there was a scarcity of food, the way that we feel about time creates a bad state of mind, right? We all know that. How do you feel about time? It's not good. Alright, he says, think of how many times in your life you've heard someone say, I have exactly the right amount of time to enjoy everything I'm doing. And he's like, nobody ever says that. Well, here we go. At the heart of the Newtonian time crunch is a dualistic split. We are deluded into thinking that time is out there, an actual physical entity that can put pressure on us in here. Yeah. I'm checking my notes, but I'm like, I'm trying to do this in order. Okay, so we need to make a few changes in how we think about space in order to change how we think about time. Now, this is the first really fascinating idea. Okay, he says the first thing we need to change is how much space we are willing to occupy. By learning to occupy space in a new way, we actually gain the ability to generate more time. Okay, so he gives an example. He says, if you're forced to sit on a hot stove, you become preoccupied with trying not to occupy it, not to occupy the space you're in. You withdraw your consciousness toward your core, contracting away from the pain of contact with the stove. The act of contracting your awareness away from space makes time congeal. It seems to slow down and harden into a solid mass. The more you cringe from the pain, the slower time gets. Conceptually, this is hard to understand, but I think when you think about these experiences and then like the expanding and the contracting. Okay, but if you're embracing your beloved, your awareness flows in the opposite direction towards space. When you're with your loved ones, or especially he's talking about like romantic love, like when you're with your spouse, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, every cell in your body yearns to be in union with him or her. Your awareness flows out toward your periphery. You want to occupy every possible smidgen of space in the yearned for present. When you're in love, you relax into the space around you and in you, and in you, and your consciousness expands into space and time disappears, right? So, and that can happen in the evening if you're relaxing and having a good time and you're just in that joyful, happy state with those you love. You just melt into the presence. And I never thought about it this way, but he talks about how your consciousness expands, you're embracing, I'm realizing like this is parallel to like taking ownership, and acceptance. You're accepting and owning and expanding and receiving that which is surrounding you. The space in which you are accepting it and embracing it and relaxing into it. And in that state, time disappears. He says if you even remember to glance at a clock, you notice the time has passed, entire hours can disappear. When your heart is beating in time with your beloveds, every cell is reaching out for total union. You forget about time. When you're willing to occupy all space, time simply disappears. You're everywhere all at once. There's no place to get to, and everywhere you are, it's exactly the right time. So you accept it, and it all just flows together. Okay. But then he talks about, alright, I like this quote. He says, you'll never have enough money to buy all the stuff you don't really need, and you'll never have enough time to do all the things you really don't want to do. Our Newtonian concept of both time and money is built on scarcity. And I think this is interesting. He talks about advertising. Advertising encourages us to want a lot of things we don't really need. It also encourages us to want to do a lot of things we don't really want to do. All of those problems disappear on Einstein time and in your zone of genius. I'll put some notes in the summary guide about the enlightened no, but he also talks about saying no to things that are not in your zone of genius, not based on other factors, but because they don't fit in your zone of genius, so that you're streamlining your life and just doing that which fits in that space that you are now choosing to occupy. Okay, so that's all intriguing, right? Sounds interesting. Benefits sound great. He says, there's one thing you have to do to get on Einstein time. He says there's one big shift you have to make. And he says, it's so unthinkable, I've actually heard grown-ups gasp in astonishment when I've suggested they do it. Okay. Basically, he says it involves taking full ownership of time. And I found ownership is just a key principle. And of course, this is still soaking in for me. But I want to cover it and explain it for you, and then we can explore this concept together. I would love to hear in the Facebook group, if you have takeaways, if you have thoughts on this as you explore this concept. When we switch to Einstein time, we take charge of the amount of time we have. We realize that we are where time comes from. We embrace this liberating insight. Since I'm the producer of time, I can make as much of it as I need. We're no longer in an us versus them relationship. We're the source of time. And he says, quit thinking of time as out there. Take ownership of it. Acknowledge that you are where it comes from, and it will stop owning you. Claim time as yours, and it will release its claim on you. The best way he's found to do this is to ask a specific question. And the question is, he says, to generate an abundance of time, ask yourself, where in my life am I not taking full ownership? And I have been slowly walking this out as an experiment, and it's working. It's fascinating. I'm still getting my head around it. But my last bullet point for this says, stress and conflict are caused by resisting acceptance and ownership. Stress and conflict are caused by resisting acceptance and ownership. I was just listening to a friend talk about our relationship with time and our relationship with our past, and she was saying that accepting your past frees you to have a better relationship with time and with the present. And I was like, oh, that is fascinating. Just accepting your past, accepting your life, accepting the space that you occupy, taking ownership, realizing that you create space, you create your world, your thoughts have created your reality. You create time based on the way that you interact with everything and the way you think and feel about your surroundings. So when you take ownership of time, you can use the enlightened know, you can discover your zone of genius, you can do the different practical steps we talked about to remove your upper limit, you can remove the limiting beliefs. As you take ownership of all of those different things, and you take ownership of how you spend your time, what you do with your time, how you feel about the space you occupy, all of those things cycle together into what he talks about a spiral, an upward spiral, how the zone of genius is this upward spiral where you've got to pay attention and take the journey, but you just keep going up. There's no limit, there's no ceiling. And the final key is walking out an awareness of upper limiting behaviors in a attitude of awe and wonder and curiosity, like we talked about, and then taking ownership of your life. When you take ownership, you accept everything as something that you have created, and then you are free to make decisions about it, and that sets you on the right path. And then he gives a really good practical step. He says, stop complaining about time, completely change your language about how you talk about time. If there's any part of ourselves or our lives that we're not fully willing to accept, we will experience stress and friction. The stress will disappear the moment we accept that part and claim ownership of it. At that moment, the disowned part of us is embraced into the wholeness of ourselves, and from that place of wholeness, miracles are born. And so one way to do this, to walk it out, is to stop complaining about time. And he says, notice the conversations around you. How many times you hear things like, I wish I had time to stop and chat, but I'm in a hurry. Where did the time go? There aren't enough hours in the day. If only I'd got another hour's sleep. Love to talk, but I've got to run. Have to get to the bank. Don't have time to do that right now. He says especially to eliminate that last phrase, I don't have time to do that right now. He says instead to say that you do not choose. Or is it just that you don't choose to do that right now? Take ownership of your decisions. Change your mindset from being a victim of time to being the owner and creator of time, and speaking through your language that you choose what to do, that you make decisions, that you take ownership. And he talks about the results from that. Okay. Super fun, right? Right? Super intriguing. I really love that stuff. I want to get more into more of that kind of stuff. And we're going to get into more of that fun, kind of sciencey, metaphysical, and practical, both. But I think some of these books are really helping us lay a super fun foundation, and I really love seeing what each different author, their take, their stories, their explanations, their vocabulary about all of this. So I hope you enjoyed our discussion of The Big Leap. I've been talking about this off and on Facebook and stuff for like a year, so I'm super excited to have these videos here, and really feel free to go on and talk about other books and then be able to refer back and reference these videos. So if you have any thoughts, questions, feedback, ideas, stories, please share in the Facebook group. And I love you, I believe in you, and I will see you next time.